Welcome into the show. Zach Moore podcast. Oh, we got episode 30. 3-0. Took me a long time to get here. I guess not really. Not really. But exciting show today. Like usual, we're going to talk about things going on in our universe, particularly with space, things that have come from outside of our planet and come back to us. Things that we have had planned for years, and now we're getting back some data and getting back some spacecraft as well. Then we're also going to talk a little bit about um what the FDA is doing. I have a story about the FDA that I do think is particularly interesting. Then we'll just talk about football. I know last week in last episodes it was mostly football, or it was actually only football. So today we will go back to our regularly scheduled programming of talking about really cool stuff. Over the weekend, there was a little thing that happened on our little planet, and new discoveries, new technology, new greatness was uncovered by our NASA. And I want to spend the majority of today's episode kind of talking about this mission. But first, let's listen in to when this actually came to our humble planet.
Right now, the mission ops team eager at the edge of their seats for that first call out of Earth atmospheric entry. Very exciting moment coming up in just a few seconds here. We're about 20 seconds away. You see the team at Lockheed now, all standing ready on the edge of their seats. This team, I'll remind you, just a few hours ago, gave that command to release the SRC on this long journey. It's been on its own for 4 hours. There's nothing we can do at this point. It's coming in, rain or shine. Here we go. Start your stopwatch right now. We are 13 minutes of entry, descent, and landing. We have that expected milestone of entering into the Earth's atmosphere. We can see the team at Lockheed, and we actually have a visual now. This is from our infrared tracking camera on the WB-57, our high altitude plane, at about 47,000 feet MSL, mean sea level, getting a great view of that SRC heating up as it enters into Earth's atmosphere. The punishing deceleration that spacecraft, that SRC is experiencing right now, as it comes in at about 27,650 miles an hour. You can see it glowing brightly in the sky. And in just a few moments, we're going to reach peak heating and peak deceleration. That's at 32 G-forces, punishing G-force on our SRC, a phenomenal view of that streaking SRC coming in across the sky. At this point, we've entered in over San Francisco, California, and are very quickly going to be approaching the Utah test and training range just a little bit further to the east. Entry was at.
He is experiencing maximum heating, maximum deceleration.
So you just heard right there, we're experiencing that 5,000 degree Fahrenheit maximum heating, burning scalding hot on that heat shield that is protecting our sample within, and maximum deceleration that is at 32 G-force, punishing deceleration from Earth's atmosphere, the drag forces that are acting on that SRC. Once again, as I mentioned, that sample is safe and sound within that SRC, that sample return capsule, as it comes in, burning through Earth's atmosphere. You can see our high altitude plane searching for that SRC. You can see it faintly on your screen there.
Video right there of what I'll go into and explain now. But what that video was showing was this sample, which I'll get into what the sample is. Give me a little bit of time. Coming into our Earth's atmosphere, and after 9 years, we're seeing the culmination of hundreds, if not thousands of people's work coming together to fruition as this historic moment for our civilization is coming back to our planet and once again joins our atmosphere. And you can see how fast it was coming in based off the infrared cameras that they were using. And by doing so, you were able to see the temperature and just the sheer force that was put on that particular device that it came through our atmosphere and it got pretty hot. So let's kind of go into now and talk about what this mission was. So this is the Osiris Rex, named after a Greek god, Osiris. It was a mission to basically go to an asteroid, collect samples, come back to Earth, and then go to a different asteroid and collect more samples. Now that sounds very easy. That sounds very simple. Maybe not easy, but it sounds simple. Okay. And so far the mission has been a success. They went to this asteroid, which I'll talk about later. They collected a sample on this asteroid. That sample is now here back on Earth, being looked at by scientists from around the world, but particularly in Utah, in a particular military zone where it landed, a kind of restricted airspace for the military. And then from there on, it'll be kind of poked and prodded and looked at the contents of the samples that were collected. But this is a mission which had the goal of trying to see, one, whether or not we could perform a mission like this. This is a very complicated mission because, as we're going to talk about later, it is not easy to land on such a small object, such as an asteroid, obviously. Asteroids are not planet-sized for the most part. This was a very, compared to our world, a very small target to hit. So a amazing engineering feat, but that's not even the thing I care about. The thing I care about with this particular mission is its goal. What is the objective of the mission? The objective of this mission with the Osiris Rex was to try and find not evidence of life, which is my favorite thing, but evidence of the building blocks of what created our solar system, how we got here, how we formed, and possibly how other civilizations could form elsewhere out in the universe. And now let's watch a video of said device going and collecting a sample. And this is the first time that we have ever seen video of a probe or a craft landing on a foreign body, such as a asteroid. Obviously, we've landed on foreign bodies as planets, but as an asteroid and collecting samples and then returning those samples back to Earth, our civilization has not done this amount of stuff. We've gone to asteroids, and I believe we've returned stuff in the past, but not like this, and certainly not on video as good as this. So, captured on October 20th during the Osiris Rex mission, touch and go sample collection event. This series of images show the SAMCAM's imager field of view as the NASA spacecraft approaches and touch down on asteroid Bennu's surface, over 200 million miles away from Earth. The sampling event brought the spacecraft all the way down to sample site Nightingale, touching down within 3 feet of the targeted location. The team on Earth received confirmation at 6:08 Pacific p.m. at 6:08 p.m. that a successful touchdown occurred. Preliminary data show that 1 foot wide sampling had touched Bennu's surface for approximately 6 seconds, after which the spacecraft performed a back away burn. So this is happening 200 million miles away from our humble planet when this is doing it. So first off, 200 million miles. Now imagine how far away the sun is from Earth. That's under 100 million miles. So this is on the other side of the sun when this is ultimately touching down. And now for light to get from the sun to Earth, and vice versa. If we were to send let's say a radio message, send a command to a probe to say to turn right or to turn on this or to turn on that, to send signals to and from to go to the sun or something that's around the sun is about 9 minutes. Right? So there is a delay when it comes to these things. So now imagine 200 million miles. There is, I want to say, about a 20-minute delay between when you can send a signal and when you can receive a signal, just because of the sheer distance of how far away this thing is. So what they had to do in this mission was to try and get it so that they could have the probe descend and decelerate and do all of this stuff on its own. So in this video, there are no humans controlling this action. This is strictly the probe doing this on its own, and then the people finding this video, I mean, tens of minutes later, 20 minutes later or so. So that it just keep that in mind, that this is happening in real time, but in a completely different place in our solar system. Let's go right here. And we're going to get touchdown. It hits, and you can see, let's go towards the end a little bit. You see, as we're getting, let me change the playback speed to half speed. You see right here, right before, you can see the surface of this asteroid, very rocky. And now listening to kind of the people who are involved in this, they were talking about how they thought that the surface, because it is so densely packed with minerals and mostly what they believe is to be carbon, they thought that this would be a extremely tough and extremely hard surface. Unfortunately, they were mistaken. As you see this touchdown, you can see kind of just how fragile the surface of this asteroid is. So it hits, shatters that stuff everywhere, and then now you can see it kind of bouncing up and off of it, right? You're able to see that this arm, and as you can see in the little description right there, this is the touch and go sample collector. And now what this is doing is it's going into, now in here, it looks like it's dropping down and then going back up, but in reality, it was touching the ground, as it said, for 6 seconds. So it's on the ground, and what happens is, in order to get a sample of that surface, it fires gas so that the samples can be pushed into a special compartment, and then it can get its stuff up and out of there and do its collection. And so it is actually called the touch and go sample acquisition mechanism, is this actual little arm that you can kind of see right here that extends into the surface right here. So this little white section on the underside of it, there is a little basin that they use to collect the surface sample right here. So as it touches down, I'll try and get right on it when it makes contact. So this is pretty much contact right here. Then it shoots out gas to try and get some of that material on the inside. And then it fires its boosters and it kind of gets up a little bit. They were not expecting it to be as soft in its surface as this, because I mean, if you look at this right here, it appears like it's a solid rock surface, but that is not the case. And right here you can see this is a series of 2 images which shows the moment before and after the spacecraft touched down on Bennu's surface. And then it talks about the sampling. Here's another video of it as well. You can kind of see right there, just this stuff kind of going everywhere, rocks flying all over the place. Now, I don't think that this event really caused any real damage to this asteroid Bennu. However, it certainly was not what scientists were expecting. They were expecting a much harder surface. Now, let's kind of get into what is this mission? What the hell is this and why do I care? All right, we have some frequently asked questions. What is OSIRIS-REx? On September 24th, 2023, NASA OSIRIS-REx became the first U.S. mission to deliver a sample of an asteroid to Earth. The spacecraft, which launched September 8th, 2016, collected rocks and dust, an estimated 8.8 ounces or 250 grams from the surface of asteroid Bennu on October 20th, 2020. After further study of the asteroid, the spacecraft began its cruise back to Earth with the sample on May 10th, 2021. The material gathered from Bennu acts as a time capsule from the earliest days of our solar system and will help us answer big questions about the origins of life and the natures of asteroids. So the main goal of the mission and why they particularly chose this particular asteroid is because of one of the contents of the asteroid, which we'll get into later, to see what exactly the earlier universe looked like, because this asteroid is many believe to be older than our entire solar system. So this thing has been here for a very long time, and the contents that make it up potentially have broken off and gone into Earth and helped to spark the creation of life on our planet as we know it. And I wanted to show this video of the NASA team. This is NASA's chief science director, I believe, is her title. And let's hear what she has to say about the mission.
Earth science, an expert on how our planet works in climate. Can you tell us how this asteroid mission and the samples we return might impact how we understand life on Earth, how it evolved, and how climate issues now might be involved?
Yeah, so this asteroid Bennu may record some of the earliest history of our solar system. So scientists are looking at it to help us understand planet formation and the origins of water and carbon, which led to life here on Earth.
That's incredible.
Okay. Kind of get an idea of from the actual scientists as to the goals of this mission. For me, finding life elsewhere in the universe is fascinating for me, but also finding reasons for life on our own planet is probably equally as fascinating, because there are a multitude of steps and a multitude of events that have happened in our past that has led to life here on Earth. So let's just get right into it. Let's go. Oh, I got to close that window. Excusez-moi. Let's get over here. All right. When and where did the sample capsule land? So I was almost unaware of this mission. I was not big into space at the time when this launched, so I wasn't really paying attention. But let's talk a little bit about the mission, because at this point now, knowing what I know now, I mean, I think this is an incredible opportunity for us to kind of understand where we are in our universe, and whether or not, if we are so unique in a way that there are no other places that could possibly have this many things go right and create life as we know it. So, OSIRIS-REx released its sample capsule toward Earth's atmosphere at 6:42 a.m. on September 24th, 2023. The spacecraft was 63,000 miles from Earth's surface at the time, about 1/3 the distance from Earth to the moon. Traveling at 27,650 miles per hour, the capsule pierced the atmosphere at 10:42 a.m. That's that video that I showed you in the opening. off the coast of California at altitude about 83 miles. It landed at the Department of Defense Utah Test and Training Range near Salt Lake City at 10:52 a.m. Along the way, 2 parachutes successfully deployed to stabilize and slow the capsule down to a gentle 11 miles per hour at touchdown. Radar, infrared, and optical instruments in the air and on the ground tracked the capsule to its landing coordinates inside a 36-mile by 8.5-mile area on the range. Within several minutes, a recovery team went and picked it up. The Bennu sample was transported in its unopened canister to aircraft by NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, September 25th, 2023. Curation scientists will disassemble the canister, extract the weights of the sample, create an inventory of the rocks and dust, and over time distribute pieces of Bennu to science worldwide. So now, good little background on it, but what is Bennu made of? Or what is it believed to have been made of? Scientists predict that Bennu formed from pieces of a larger asteroid in the asteroid belt after a catastrophic collision between 1 and 2 billion years ago. Considered a rubble pile asteroid, Bennu is an amalgamation of rocks that are loosely packed and barely held together by gravity or other forces. The asteroid is relatively rich in organic molecules, which is one of the most important things right there. Its material also appears to have been chemically altered by liquid water in the distance past, likely when it was still part of the larger asteroid it came from. A major question in science is, how did Earth come to have an abundance of organic molecules and liquid water, two key ingredients for life as we know it? Scientists say that asteroids like Bennu could have delivered these ingredients through collision with Earth billions of years ago. So we didn't come equipped as a planet with water and oxygen, carbon dioxide, all of these things that help to start the creation of life on this planet and allowed for us to evolve into what we are today. There are many people who believe that over the course of time, certain asteroids, meteor showers, these different objects that come from outer space could potentially come from way outside of our solar system, but based off of coincidence or based off of many different factors, which mostly have to do with gravity, these objects come in contact with the surface of our planet. And the content of these asteroids, or whatever they may be, that enter into our atmosphere from an outside area are carrying many of the life forms, or not life forms, but the life creating molecules and elements that we have now today on this planet come from those certain things. So why study Bennu? Why do this? Mostly, one, it was a pretty easy planet to get to. I'll say that compared to many of the other asteroids. I mean, you look at the average size of an asteroid; they are very small, and frankly, they're very hard to see. But here we go. 1, the asteroid is a remnant from the tumultuous formation of the solar system. Unlike any rocks we can find on Earth, on our planet, weather, erosion, and plate tectonics have wiped away evidence of Earth formation. Thus, Bennu's rocks offer us an insight into our own history, a time of about 4.5 billion years ago when Earth was first forming. 2, Bennu is rich in organic compounds that make up all known life. There is evidence that asteroids like Bennu delivered these compounds to Earth when they smashed into our planet billions of years ago, when the conditions for life were starting to emerge. Scientists want to learn more about this earlier period, and samples of a well-preserved asteroid could help them do that. 3, most asteroids can be found in the asteroid belt, a ring of asteroids that circles between the Sun and the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. The asteroid belt is very far away, so a round trip would take a long time and be much harder to do. Bennu, in contrast, crosses Earth's orbit, so it's easier and quicker to send a spacecraft to Bennu and back. All right, and then what happens to the OSIRIS-REx spacecraft after it delivers the sample to Earth? About 20 minutes after the spacecraft released its sample capsule above Earth's atmosphere, it fired its engines to divert its trajectory away from Earth. So while it was on its way back, it was heading straight for Earth so that it could pop off this little sample thing, send that back, and then continue on its mission by firing its thrusters and getting out of the way of colliding with the Earth. The spacecraft then set out on a new mission called Osiris Apex to explore asteroid Apophis, which it will reach in 2029. Now, if you wanna learn about something else, look into Apophis, Apophis. They are predicting that it will collide with our planet. Both, I mean, if you're listening to this and you're extremely young, you're like 2 or 3 years old, maybe it could have an effect on you, but they say it'll hit our planet in about 150 years. So I will most likely be long gone by then. All right. And now let's move on to particularly the mission in and of itself. So, asteroid operations for the OSIRIS-REx began in August 2018 when the spacecraft captured its first image of Bennu from a distance of 1.2 million miles. Let's take a look right here. All right, that's the first image from 1.2 or 1.4 million miles. This crop set of 5 images was attained by the Polycam camera over the course of an hour for calibration purposes in order to assist the mission's navigation team with optical navigation efforts. Bennu is visible as a moving object against the stars in the constellation Serpens. So you can kind of see the movement right there against the backdrop of the stars. Very cool, very cool. All right. The spacecraft began its return trip to Earth in March 2021. The spacecraft's official arrival at Bennu occurred on December 3rd, 2018, when OSIRIS-REx transitioned from flying toward Bennu to operating around Bennu. While at the asteroid, OSIRIS-REx is surveying and mapping Bennu, navigating in close proximity to the asteroid, and will ultimately touch the surface for 5 seconds to gather a sample of the asteroid. All right, so starting off with the approach. The approach phase began on August 17th, 2018, when the spacecraft was still about 1.2 million miles away from Bennu. And it continued until the spacecraft arrived at the asteroid on December 3rd, 2018. The primary goals of approach were to visually locate Bennu for the first time, survey the surrounding area for potential hazards, and collect enough imagery of Bennu for scientists to generate a detailed shape model of the asteroid, assign a coordinate system, and understand its spin state so that they could survey it, land on it, and find out what the hell's happening with this thing before they return back to our planet. A preliminary survey phase began with the spacecraft's arrival at Bennu on December 3rd, 2018, and marked the first time that the OSIRIS-REx spacecraft operated around the asteroid. The spacecraft made a total of 5 passes over the North Pole, equator, and South Pole at a range of 4.3 miles. The primary science goal of preliminary survey were to estimate Bennu's mass, refine the asteroid spin rate model, and generate a global shape model at a revolution of 75 centimeters. All right, moving on to the next phase. In orbital A phase, the spacecraft was placed into a gravitationally bound orbit around Bennu for the first time, December 31st, 2018. There were no science requirements for orbital A, as this phase was designed to provide the mission team with experience navigating close proximity to a small body. The spacecraft circled Bennu at a distance between 0.99 and 1.3 miles and traveled around 0.11 miles per hour, with each orbit lasting about 61.4 hours. This phase marked the closest that a spacecraft has ever orbited around a small body. During this phase, the navigation team transitioned from star-based navigation to landmark-based navigation, using landmarks such as boulders and craters on Bennu's surface to determine the position of OSIRIS-REx. It allows the navigation team to maneuver the spacecraft very precisely, which will be critical during upcoming mission phrases. The detailed survey, baseball diamond. All right, and then coming up right here, we have 2 detailed surveys. So we have the baseball diamond, and then we have the equatorial station. So The in-depth study of Bennu began in earnest during baseball diamond phase, which kicked off on February 28th, 2019. OSIRIS-REx made multiple passes around Bennu to produce the wide range of viewing angles necessary to fully observe the asteroid. The spacecraft also uses its OTES spectrometer to map the chemical composition of Bennu's entire surface. Images obtained during this phase were of high enough resolution to produce digital terrain maps and global image mosaics. Let's take a look. Global map of asteroid Bennu's surface is a mosaic of images collected by NASA's OSIRIS-REx spacecraft between March 7th and April 19th. The spacecraft collected these images at a distance ranging from 1.9 to 3.1 miles above the asteroid surface. So right here, as you can see, is a composite. Now, imagine you roll this up into a sphere, and this is what the surface of this asteroid looks like. Very, very cool. And there's many different features of it. And hopefully in the future, they can show you where exactly they landed. All right, moving on to equatorial stations. During detailed survey equatorial stations phase, the spacecraft made scientific observations needed to help the team home in on the best location on Bennu to collect a sample of regolith, or loose surface material. To obtain this data, the spacecraft executed a series of slews between Bennu's north and south poles, while taking observations from 7 different stations above the equator. This data was studied to understand the geology of Bennu. This spacecraft also conducted searches for dust and gas plumes. Wide range of data products developed during this phase were analyzed and combined to produce the integrated global science value map, the global safety map, and the global sampleability map. Okay, and then orbital B. At the end of detailed survey, the spacecraft entered a close orbit within 0.6 miles around Bennu to begin orbital phase B. This phase broke the record OSIRIS-REx set in orbital A for the closest that a spacecraft has ever orbited around a small body. The primary science activities for this phase were the global mapping of Bennu, the development of shape modeling based on OLA data, and the execution of a radio science experiment. These data were used to evaluate potential sample collection sites for 3 key elements: safety, sampleability, and science value. Orbital B concluded with the team narrowing in on a primary and a backup sample site. Orbital C. At the end of orbital B, the spacecraft transitioned to a slightly higher orbital C for additional particle ejection observations. During orbital C, the spacecraft flew approximately 1.3 kilometers above the asteroid surface. So 0.6 miles is about 1 kilometer. So not super much of a difference there. Then it went on a couple of reconnaissance missions, including Recon A, performed 4 flyovers, 1 for each potential sample collection site. Site sandpaper was observed first, right here. Okay. Digital terrain model. This crater's steep slope stands out in this 3D printed model, along with the ruggedness of Bennu's southern hemisphere, where Sandpiper is located. So that is the first little area right here. It's a floor of a large crater with a radius of 103 feet. The site itself is a relatively flat area with a 16-foot radius. Sandpiper is surrounded by steep slopes and large boulders that are scattered throughout the area. Very cool. So that was the first spot that they looked at, followed by the next site, Osprey. Right here, located near Bennu's equator, site Osprey is set in a small crater with a 33-foot radius. Osprey was selected as the backup sample collection site over sites Sandpaper and Kingfisher because it had fewer hazards. It's easier to navigate the spacecraft in and out of, and it appears to contain relatively more fine-grained material. Osprey has the strongest spectral signature for carbon-rich material among the 4 sites. You can see it right here. Very, very cool. All right. And then Kingfisher is another site as well. Located near Bennu's equator is a small crater that has a radius of 13 feet, surrounded by boulders, 16-foot radius, and it is free of large rocks. It is possible that the region contains material from both the northern and southern hemisphere. This site is particularly interesting because of its location in a small crater, which means it may be a relatively young feature compared to Bennu's larger craters, such as the one in which Sandpiper is located. Good to know, good to know. Observations for this phase concluded with site Nightingale. Nightingale? Maybe. All right. This was selected as the primary sample collection site because it holds the greatest amount of unobstructed, fine-grained material. And if you look at the image right here, you can kind of see why they chose this place. Those are rocks which are massive. And now this little device right here, that is right in the center right here. That is the size of this device or this probe that they sent there. And now this is about the size of a school bus. So this is a pretty big thing. Yeah, scale of the site. So look at some of these rocks surrounding it, pretty massive. So they definitely want a spot where there's not too much getting in the way of this craft. All right. This mission phase in Recon A helped the team assess which two sites were best suited for sample collection. And then they kind of go on another recon, two more flyovers, one over the primary sample collection site Nightingale, and another over the backup site Osprey. Let's take a look at Osprey. So you can kind of see right here, big rock right there, right on this surface. Given Osprey's geographical position on Bennu's equatorial bulge, it is possible that the region contains more material from both the northern and southern hemispheres. Osprey has the strongest spectral signature for carbon-rich material among the four sites. All right. The spacecraft observed two sample collection sites from an altitude of approximately 0.4 miles. So now we're getting really close. And the primary goal of this mission phase was to collect imagery. Then they do another reconnaissance mission, perform two flyovers, one a primary sample site, Nightingale, and another a backup site, Osprey. The spacecraft will observe the two sample collection sites from an altitude of approximately 820 feet, which is closer than a lot. That's certainly a lot closer than 0.4 miles. All right, rehearsal. Because sample collection is a critical event, the mission planned two rehearsals prior to execution, which is very cool. The spacecraft practiced leaving its orbit, maneuvering to a predefined checkpoint located 410 feet above the sample site, and then returned to orbit. In August 2020, the second rehearsal took the spacecraft from orbit through the checkpoint burn to the matchpoint burn where it approached, but did not touch the sampling location before returning to orbit. During each rehearsal, the spacecraft collected and analyzed tracking data and OCAMs and TAGCAMs imagery so that the team could verify the flight system's performance before the actual sample collection maneuver. And that's where we will go kind of next. Touch and go. During the sample collection event, OSIRIS-REx used the TAGSAM touch-and-go sample acquisition mechanism instrument to collect a sample of regolith from Bennu. TAGSAM is an articulated arm on the spacecraft with a round sampler head at the end. During the touch-and-go maneuver, the sampler head extended toward Bennu, and the momentum of the spacecraft's slow downward trajectory pushed it into the asteroid surface for about 10 seconds, exactly 6 seconds, as we talked about earlier, just long enough to obtain a sample. At contact, nitrogen gas was blown onto the surface to roll up dust and small pebbles, which was then captured in the TAGSAM head, as you can kind of see right here. Let's go look at this. So boom, there goes the nitrogen pushing out. And as that is pushed out, it creates a loop right here. I can't stop it, but it creates a loop right here. And as you see, that loop pushes down into the surface and then kind of sweeps it up and brings it into those little collection areas. All right. On October 22nd, the OSIRIS-REx mission team received these images, which showed the spacecraft collector head overflowing with material collected from Bennu's surface, well over the 2-ounce mission requirement. Once the team determined that the sample collection was successful, the Taxium head was placed in the sample return capsule for return to Earth. After successful stowage, the spacecraft slowly drifted away from Bennu to a safe distance, but is now venturing back to the asteroid for a final flyby on April 7th. All right, post-tag observation. OSIRIS-REx will perform a final flyby to observe sample site Nightingale from a distance of approximately 2.4 miles, capturing its last images of the sample collection site to look for transformation on Bennu's surface after the October 20th, 2020 sample collection event. The spacecraft will perform 5 separate navigation maneuvers in order to return to the asteroid and position itself for the final flyby. OSIRIS-REx executed the first maneuver on January 14, 2021, which acted as a braking burn and put the spacecraft on a trajectory to rendezvous with the asteroid one last time. Since October's sample collection event, the spacecraft has been slowly drifting away from the asteroid and will end up approximately 1,635 miles from Bennu. After the braking burn, the spacecraft is now slowly approaching the asteroid and will perform a second approach maneuver on March 16th, which is approximately 155 miles from Bennu. OSIRIS-REx will then execute 3 subsequent maneuvers, which are required to place the spacecraft on a precise trajectory for the final flyby on April 7th. Then, after the flyby, OSIRIS-REx will slowly drift away from Bennu to a safe distance. It will stay until its departure in May 21 for the return back to Earth. I mean, just fascinating stuff. Just fascinating stuff. And now let's talk a little bit. Let's actually go back so we can see that video again of it hitting the surface. So this is, as you can see right here, this gives you a side view of what's going on. So it pushes that gas out, opens up these collectors right here, and then that surface gets in right here. Now, back to the video. Now imagine the other view right here, and this is 6 seconds of contact with the ground. So that's how long this takes. Although in the video, it looks like it just slams into the ground and bounces back up. You see, when it pressed all that stuff out, they were not expecting this amount of debris and dust to fly away. I like this video a little bit better. Go very slowly. Just trying to kiss the surface, really. You're not trying to make a huge dent. Boom. So, as you can see right here, it appears that the collection event is so strong and the gas is so strong that it's ultimately pushing away. But I cannot stress the fact that this is a series of images taking. This is not a live 60 frames per second video of the event happening. This is the images that the craft took on its way down. So please keep that in mind. It was on the ground touching for 6 seconds. And we'll look one more time. Fascinating. Fascinating. Crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. All right. Now this is a little bit of a backstory. OSIRIS-REx was tasked with grabbing at least 2 ounces of material during its dive down to the asteroid surface. Bennu was not nearly as solid as the mission team had expected, and Osiris's sampling arm sank deep into the space rock before popping out back again. Spacecraft alert merged with a bounty of Bennu bits, so much in fact that dirt and rock clogged up the sampling gear, preventing a proper seal and causing some collected materials to float away into space. To minimize sample loss, the mission team decided to stow the Bennu material into the probe's return capsule as quickly as possible. This plan skipped a previously planned maneuver that was supposed to spin OSIRIS-REx around a bit in order to gather data that would have allowed team members to estimate the mass of the collected sample. Very, very cool. Now, here we talk a little bit about another mission, which I wanted to talk about. So this is not the first time ever that we've ever gone to another asteroid and sampled as a civilization. This is by far the biggest one and probably the most important one. But I wanted to talk about another mission so that you're well informed that this is not the only time that we've ever been to an asteroid. I don't want to give off that impression, but this is certainly the most important mission that we have gone to an asteroid, collected a sample, and then returned back to Earth. The getting a sample and returning back to Earth is important because of just how much we actually got. So, for some perspective, Japan's Hayabusa 2 spacecraft returned only about 0.18 ounces or 5 grams of material from the asteroid Ryugu in December 2020, and scientists have already squeezed a lot of intriguing results from that relatively small sample. So this is collecting 250 grams compared to 5 grams. So an insane increase in the amount of stuff that can be studied. I mean, 5 grams of an asteroid can still be studied, can still be analyzed and see what its contents are made of. But it's always better to just have more stuff to kind of see more so what is making this thing up. All right. One line of inquiry will focus on organic compounds, the carbon-containing building blocks of life as we know it. Scientists think carbon-rich asteroids like Bennu may have helped life get a foothold on Earth long ago by delivering organics via impacts. But the OSIRIS-REx spacecraft work won't be done after it sends the sample capsule towards Earth. The probe will then be set course for the potentially hazardous asteroid Apophis, which it will reach in 2029 and study on an extended mission, as we spoke about before. Then this is a spacecraft in and of itself right here. Kind of see how cool this thing looks. I think right up here. These are all the different instruments on it. This is that beneath section, a couple of little thrusters on it, bunch of different things right here. This top section right here, right in the center right here that I'm kind of orbiting around, this is what was sent back to Earth. So once they got that sample, they put it in this thing. Then this entire structure came back to Earth, and then it separated from this little top piece right here, and that's what actually came back to Earth and got into our atmosphere, heated up like that, and landed. All right, and you can see that end piece right here. This is actually what it is after it came through the Earth's atmosphere, heated up to thousands degrees Fahrenheit. And as you saw in the video, it was crazy to look at. Super hot in terms of its temp. I mean, you could say it's pretty hot as well in terms of what if the mission is sexually attractive to you. I'm not shaming. If that's your thing, I understand it. I understand. This is very cool stuff. All right. This sequence of images right here, you can see. So another thing to keep in mind with, and I can't stress this enough, when watching the videos, particularly of collecting that sample, it is a series of images that are put back to back to kind of show almost in a video sense what happened. But please keep in mind, they are not snapping 30 pictures a second, and it's not a clear, fast video. I cannot stress that enough, so that if you do on your own, you want to watch some of these videos, you want to look at it yourself, please keep that in mind that this is not a live video feed. These are images taking back to back at not 30 times a second, not 60 times a second. They're just not taking that many photos. So please keep that in mind. All right. So this is it, putting it back into that thing, and you can see it's a GIF or a GIF, however you want to say it right here. So I can't stop the video, but you can see it closing on that kind of saucer thing in the middle. That is what collected the sample. All right. Now that we know kind of a little bit about the mission, let's do a little bit of a deep dive into actively what they landed on. So far, we kind of know exactly what the mission was, and hopefully with the conclusion of the mission, they are currently, I'm recording this on a Wednesday. I'm still checking and trying to find all the latest info on it, but they have not made any huge discoveries yet. But if they do, I'll be the first to let you know. Probably talk about this in the next podcast as well, if there are any findings of this as well. But the mission broke so many records because it went to this particular asteroid, collected these samples, then came back to Earth. The mission is still not over. They're still sending that probe to another asteroid, which is something that we will cover probably in 2029. But getting back to this, so gets the sample and is coming back to Earth. I mean, just the sheer amount of people that it took to be involved in this thing to put it together. Bravos to the team. I do suggest that you go watch that full stream from NASA's website. It's actually just this video right here. This is the entire stream. I mean, if you want to, we can kind of go
That crosshair
forward right here. This is
colored parachute.
yeah, so this is kind of right here. And you can see it like that's landed on the ground. I mean, I don't think in real time I'll be able to get the actual. I don't think I'll be able to find it actually landing, but yeah, so you can kind of see, I don't want to get too caught down in the weeds or anything right here, but it goes on, and you can even see in the before stream that they did a great job. These groupings of people. She was on site on the actual retrieval location, so she talked about the exact kind of operations that it took, that once it gets on ground, how do they get it to a facility so that they can analyze the data on it. And then they have these studio hosts to kind of talk about the mission itself, to talk about the importance of this mission. You can see this little graphic right here of the probe being sent to our planet. But I really do encourage you to watch the entire thing. They even have, I mean, if you know who this guy is, you know some good music. But he talks about he talks about the mission a little bit himself, a famous rock star talking about a famous rock. I mean, very cool right here. They have different things. So just I encourage you to go watch that. And they also go through the entire sequence of actually getting this into the research facility. This is a live stream of the whole process of getting it there, and you can kind of see, boom, right there. We'll get to the final seconds right here. Very, very cool. So yeah, make sure you do go watch that. But kind of getting back to my main point, hopefully with this mission, there are a couple of things that obviously I would think that are extremely important. One is finding out the contents of the samples collected, particularly, is there water there? Is there carbon there? Is there certain elements that would have been present, not currently on Earth, but currently, if we're talking in terms of the creation, we're talking 2 to 4 billion years ago when the Earth was still being formed, which they believe is the makeup of this particular asteroid. What is the actual scientific importance of these samples collected and whether or not there are these things that scientists are looking for? Now, we are fairly certain that there is carbon in this, but they're going to see if there's certain carbon types, like certain things called isotopes, which I'm no chemistry major, but before I speak further, let me search up isotopes before I start talking out of my ass. Isotopes meaning, and then isotope, noun. All right. Each of two or more forms of the same element that contain equal numbers of protons but different numbers of neutron in their nuclei, and hence differ in relative atomic mass but not in chemical properties, in particular a radioactive form of an element. All right, people. All right. Yeah. Isotopes of carbon. All right, so there's carbon 12, carbon 14, 13, 11, 20, all these things. Very cool. Differences. All right, now we're getting into too far into the weeds. All right, very cool. But now let's talk about Bennu. What is this place? What is this thing? Discovered in 1999, it is a small near-Earth asteroid that passes close to Earth about every 6 years. And that's an image thanks to this recent mission right here. Kind of see an overview right here, some images. Here it is. This is a live, not exactly a live view, but this is where it is currently located right now. So you can see that's Bennu right there, and I'm gonna kind of back out right here. Boom. So with Earth currently right there up at the top of your screen, it is basically right next to Venus, separated obviously by a couple million miles. But yeah, there it is. It's still orbiting right now. This is a live look at Bennu. Very cool. All right, 10 things to know about Bennu. Found in 1999, discovered by the Lincoln Near-Earth Asteroid Research Survey on September 11th, 1999. Named by a 9-year-old. Very interesting. Original designation was 1999 RQ36. In 2013, a third grade student named Michael Puzio won a contest to name the asteroid. I mean, that's what you come up with? Bennu? All right, Michael. Let's get it together. Bennu has drifted into near-Earth space because of its gravitational interactions with giant planets and the general push of heating from the sun. You can kind of see this image right here. It is kind of easier to, when it's put up next to these images, to kind of see the size of this thing, which I think is cool in more ways than one. All right, so number 4, low density. Bennu's density is only about 30% more than water. This suggests the asteroid is probably a loose collection of rocks, like a pile of rubble. And as you could see in that landing, they were not expecting it to be as loosely packed as it was, which is very interesting to think about. Coming up next, it has a close approach to Earth every 6 years. Scientists estimate Bennu has a 1 in 2,700 chance of impacting the Earth during one of its close approaches to the Earth in the late 22nd century. So both you and I will most likely be gone by that point. Burn up or bolt. Bennu may burn up in the sun. Over millions of years, all of the planets Bennu is most likely to hit Venus. Very interesting. And as you saw in that live locator, earlier, it's right in line with Venus currently. Number 8, Big Boulder. The boulder that juts from Bennu's south pole is about 164 feet high and 180 meters wide. And I wish they would show that. I mean, I don't know if I'll be able to find that, but in the NASA broadcast, one of the things that they talked about was as they were orbiting the asteroid, they didn't run into this boulder, but they came in contact with it and they didn't realize just how big this was. And so they almost ran into it as they were orbiting around because they got extremely close to the asteroid before they actually landed. And they almost ran into this thing just because they couldn't see it. And you're dealing with a probe that you're not getting instant feedback. The signals that you're sending take a long time to actually get there. All right, number 9, moonless. Although some asteroids have moon, Bennu does not. All right, NASA's OSIRIS-REx mission studied Bennu in unprecedented detail. It collected a sample in 2020 and delivered it to Earth 2023. So why Bennu? Bennu is relatively close to Earth. It's really old and well preserved. It might even help us in our search for clues to the origins of life and learn how to preserve life by keeping near Earth asteroids at bay. All right. Overview. Okay, discovered mean orbit velocity. Is there something that I'm trying to find? Look at that. There's a different. Wow. All right, not what I was looking for. Maybe in depth. All right, an ancient relic of our solar system's early days. Bennu has seen more than 4.5 billion years of history. The best evidence suggests that within 10 million years of our solar system formation, Bennu present-day chemistry and mineralogy was already established. Because its materials are so old, Bennu represents a type of building block of our solar system's rocky planets. It may even contain organic molecules similar to those that could have played a role in the start of life on Earth. Then going further to talk about the size, as we know, it is very small, and it kind of gets into here what on that previous slide we saw with the kind of side by side to the Empire State Building. So it's about 1/3 of a mile wide at its equator. And it's not a perfect sphere either. Bennu is minuscule compared to the planets. In fact, it is only slightly wider than the height of the Empire State Building. By comparison, the smallest planet, Mercury, is more than 3,000 miles across. So this is why it's called an asteroid, not a planet, and why one of the reasons why, and I'll talk about this more in detail, why it is just insane to think that we are able to land a small little craft. Yes, it's about the size of a school bus, but still a small craft from our planet onto something that's about the size of, or about the width of the Empire State Building. I mean, an insane accomplishment for our civilization. Right, and then orbit and formation. And now let's get into the formation. Now this is all likely. Bennu was likely broken off from a much larger carbon-rich asteroid about 700 million to 2 billion years ago, which is relatively recent in geological time. It is likely formed in the main asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter and has drifted much closer to Earth since then. Scientists think that a cataclysmic collision caused a carbon-rich asteroid 60 to 30 to 130 miles in diameter, roughly the size of Connecticut, shout out, to break apart, scattering pieces, including Bennu. The asteroid has wandered into near-Earth space because of gravitational interactions with giant planets and because of the long-term Yarkovsky effect, the small force on a spinning body due to its absorbing sunlight and re-emitting the heat as infrared radiation. And then you can see the shape of this thing right here. Very cool. All right. Structure. All right. Yeah, they don't know exactly so far what it's made of. They're still trying to see. And then the final thing right here, potential for life. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to find any life forms here, but Bennu does not appear to have the condition necessary for life as we know it. Temperatures range from a toasty 240 degrees Fahrenheit to a frigid negative 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Because there is no atmospheric pressure, liquid water cannot exist on or under its surface, which stinks. Yeah, significant events, all this stuff. Now let's go into galleries. Now, last time when I was doing prep, okay, some of these didn't actually load. So yeah, you can kind of see. Here's an artist concept list. Okay. So can I zoom in? Command plus. Okay, that's not gonna work. Good Lord. Maybe that. All right, that's the best that I can do. But you can see right here, this is the descent into that object which we saw basically right here. So this is the what it would have looked like if you were an observer on the surface. So this huge long arm, and right at the end of it, I know I can't go zoom in onto it, but that little end piece right there, that's this thing. This little collector right here that ultimately got the samples from Bennu. Very, very cool. Now, let's go a little bit more right here. You can see the difference in size between this, the Empire State Building. So this is 510 meters compared to 443 meters for the Empire State Building height, and the Eiffel Tower 324 meters of height. So, and in comparison to buildings, it's big, but in comparison to other even asteroids, it's not something that's completely out of the ordinary. It's not super big. It's not crazily out of the ordinary. It's just able to have us land on it. So very, very cool stuff there. All right. Now let's go big picture. Big picture. Last week, I told a story about, or there was a story about approximately 1 million years ago, there was evidence of human life on this planet where there was a massive extinction event that almost wiped us out. And I think last week, if I remember correctly, oh no, not last week. This was two episodes ago. Sorry, but talked about just how fragile life is on our planet, and life is fragile on this planet. Imagine if Bennu collided into our Earth now in 2023. That would be the end for a lot of folks. Now, fortunately for us, it's probably not going to do that, but it still potentially would end most civilization if it collided with our planet. So that is something to keep in mind. But I do want to kind of talk about, and not trying to bring faith or religion into this, but what were the steps throughout the entirety of our solar system, throughout the entirety of our galaxy, throughout the entirety of our universe, which led us to this point? And there are billions and trillions of things that had to happen in order for me to be sitting here speaking to you about this. And I want to stress the importance of appreciating the fact that we're here. And hopefully with stories like this, with doing analysis on the particular objects that are collected as samples, or even the study of Bennu as an asteroid in and of itself. I hope that we can find evidence that life here on Earth was mostly due in part to asteroids. I hope we can finally get an answer onto how life got here on Earth, because if you've listened to people such as Joe Rogan, they've theorized, and I don't think he's super serious about this, but he has proposed that maybe much more intelligent alien civilizations came down here to Earth to seed the planet, to bring life here onto our planet. Now, I'm not certain that that's what happened. I obviously do not know if that's what happened. If we were just chimps and just whatever life forms we currently were, and then from the heavens, another civilization much far more superior than us in terms of technology and intelligence came and dropped off some things to speed up our development and to create us in what we are today. I'm not saying that that didn't happen. I'm not saying that I don't want that to happen. I mean, if we get an answer on how we were able to get here, a definitive answer, I'm all for it. But with this particular mission, I feel as though there will be some secrets that are unlocked. However, how you react to the information that comes out, whether they say there is liquid water on here, there is carbon on here, and what this means is that we are very confident in saying that life here on Earth was actually jump-started by asteroids such as this one. And I think that ultimately that will be the case. However, our species as a whole has gone from on all sides across the world. There have been civilizations which have prioritized science, math, exploration. And then there have been other societies which have done that, but they've also been interested in war and conquering different places, and even not so negative things such as trying to invest in the arts and in culture and in philosophy. These different things that our society and our civilization as a whole has talked about and theorized and come up and put together these different ideas of what makes a good civilization. And over the course of millions of years of evolution and certain events that have brought us here, we are here in 2023 with so many things in our world awry, so many things not going to plan. I mean, there are more examples than I could think of right now, but I've talked about many of them, especially the big one right now is the Ukraine war. Our society at this point has come so far, and we're not a perfect civilization, we're not a perfect planet, but there should be some hope in people's minds that we have the ability to take a large group of people, put together a mission, go out to 200 million miles away to land on a small rock that is just about as wide as the Empire State Building. And it's hard to hit a target like that when you're 200 million miles away. And it's hard to hit that target when there's a delay of tens of minutes, maybe 20 minutes of delay from when you send a signal to when it receives it and is able to do anything about that. There's so many instances of where this could have gone wrong, where the mission could have been over, but thanks to the experts who put together this mission, they were able to do so. And I hope that this is one of many examples of people, regardless of whether they're Trump supporters, Biden supporters, neither supporters, whatever, people who have these differences come together to find answers of to what exactly are we? Are we unique? What exactly were the processes that it took to get life on this planet? And for me, is this something that we could do elsewhere in the universe? Now, I don't think that this is something that they're thinking about. Well, one thing I would think about is, could we do something like this to a different civilization, to a different planet? Could we potentially send these building blocks in a form of a care package to a different planet? Is there a possibility that we find an exoplanet that might be 5, 6, 7, 10, 20 light years away, so very far away, but we know because of this mission that these certain carbons and certain water molecules and certain whatever is very important to the jump start of creating life. And now, one Bennu asteroid doesn't mean that all life on Earth was created by it. There's many of these. However, if we can potentially send a care package of these molecules, of things which we discover through the study of this, find that to help jumpstart the creation of life, you need these certain things. Could we potentially send a little gift to a far distant planet to help get life started there? I'm not sure. I hope that we are able to do something like that, because I think ultimately the creation of life is one of the most, if not the most important thing literally in the universe. Now, with creation of life, there is a lot of responsibilities. You can ask any parent. Yes, step one is to create life, but then the next 10 million steps are creating a good human. And I hope with missions like this, we find some answers about our creation, about our evolution into what we now are today. And I hope that it is a message to many of the people in NASA and hopefully in our government and across the world that we are quite possibly extremely lucky, and quite possibly this is the only planet that this many things has happened to. I mean, we might be alone. And if we are, what is our responsibility? Is our responsibility to try and expand from this planet to go to Mars, and then maybe to Mars to another planet, maybe potentially a moon of Jupiter, whatever it may be, to try and populate our own solar system? Is that the plan? Or is this something where we send out a care package, like I proposed earlier, to a faraway land that when it gets there, it's able to release these molecules and compounds that could jumpstart life and begin life in a completely different place of our galaxy? I do hope that we are under no obligation to believe that this is it, that this is just where life ends. I hope that we can think of thousands and thousands of years in the future and think about future civilizations which could be helped by our civilization, by us sending out probes that could deliver life to elsewhere. And maybe by doing so, we can instill some of the best aspects of our culture into there, of love and appreciation of the arts, movies, comedy, whatever it may be, video games, whatever it may be that you think is the best of our society, that we could transport those ideas and those ideologies to different places in our universe. I hope with this mission that we are able to discover, one, how lucky we are, and whether or not this is duplicatable. I hope that we're able to find this out, and I hope that our civilization will be able to hopefully come together in some form of agreement about the importance of this mission, and with the continuation of the mission to that other asteroid, to hopefully in the future find some defense mechanisms against asteroids that may come in contact with Earth in the future, and how we could get rid of those. Because now that we're able to land on these things why not, if you have one that's going to come in contact with us in 20 years, why not send a rocket up to it, land on it, and explode? Try and divert its path so that it doesn't hit Earth. I mean, that would be an incredible thing for our civilization, because obviously we don't want to get hit by one of these things. In the past, it was very important for these to come because if they contain water or they contain certain elements like hydrogen or oxygen or these different things that could help jumpstart and create life on a planet, that was very good to have in the past. But at this point, we don't really need that much more oxygen. We don't need that much more water. We kind of got things settled right here, right now. But what we do need is a defense against these things. Because if in the future something the size of Bennu tries to collide with our planet, now we have a little bit more expertise of landing on these things and potentially diverting their path. So, very excited for this mission. We're going to continue to keep my eyes on this mission, but let's just wait and see, folks. Let's just wait and see. To our next story, as you can see on the screen, complete 180, talking about the origins, the possible origins for life in our galaxy or our solar system, I mean, and particularly our planet, whether we can use a certain technology to transport life to a different piece or a different place in our galaxy. I mean, all the different stuff surrounding that and my fascination with this topic. Let's continue on the trend of creating life. Artificial wombs. I mean, something I did not expect to see, but a story that caught my attention and something that I think is important to talk about. FDA committee meets to discuss artificial wombs. A committee of advisors to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration met this week to discuss artificial womb technology and the possibilities for clinical trials for humans. The hope is that one day the technology could be used not to replace human wombs, but to increase the chances that extremely premature babies could survive. Important thing to note. The Pediatric Advisory Committee spent 2 days discussing development plans for establishing regulations, ethical considerations, and the effectiveness of artificial womb technology devices, along with guidelines for the first studies in humans. Similar devices had been used in preterm animals, and researchers say they could ultimately help solve a major health problem experienced around the world. So, good things. Preterm births, when a baby is born before 37 weeks of pregnancy, are a growing problem in the U.S. The preterm birth rate rose 4% in 2021 from 10.1% in 2020 to 10.5% in 2021, the CDC says. Preterm birth complications are the leading cause of death among children under 5 years of age, responsible for approximately 900,000 deaths in 2019, according to the World Health Organization. Yikes. The CDC says babies born too early have higher rates of death and disability. While babies who survive may have breathing problems, feeding difficulties, cerebral palsy, developmental delay, vision problems, and hearing problems, the use of an artificial womb, complete with synthetic amniotic fluid, could allow preterm babies more time to grow and develop, reducing the chances of death or disability. The device would be used as alternative to current standard of care management of extremely premature infants in the neonatal intensive care unit. The FDA stressed that advisory committees provide independent expert advice on broad scientific topics to help the agency make sound decisions based on the available science. Advisory committees make non-binding recommendations to the FDA, which generally follows the recommendations but is not legally bound to do so. So, if you were to read the headline of this, they're making artificial wombs. Oh my, it's the Matrix, it's all of a sudden, it's all of these bad things that obviously first come to your mind when this topic is discussed. But as you read a little bit further, there might actually be a good use to this. So let's go to the FDA. Pediatric Advisory Committee meeting announcement September 19th through 20th, 2023. So it talks about boom, boom, boom. All right, here is the agenda. The meeting presentations will be heard, viewed, captioned, and recorded through an online teleconferencing platform. On September 19th, the Pediatric Advisory Committee will meet to discuss the appropriate development plans for establishing safety and effectiveness of artificial womb technology devices, including regulatory and ethical considerations for first in-human studies. The discussions will be limited to the use of AWT as an alternative to current standard of care management of extremely premature infants in the neonatal intensive care unit. So now I have not seen what other people have said, if other people have even heard of this story, but I do think that it is important to say that most likely, I mean, maybe there's a chance, but most likely they're not doing this so that they can get rid of women and they can just start creating babies out of nothing. They can start these factories where they create super soldiers, where they could have many Dolph Lundgrens running around, Sylvester Stallones, whatever action figure you want to think of. They don't have those guys running around. I don't think that's what they're trying to do. I really truly believe. Now it could be duped. I could be wrong. They could be using this for those reasons to create super soldiers, but I will have to take them at their word that this is going to be used for premature babies. You put them into this artificial womb, and this helps to carry them on through their journey. All right. Public participation. All right. Yeah, so this is a whole bunch of stuff, but let's go right here. Artificial. And then we have, I have Carmela once again, as we talked about last week. Tennis ball time. So over here looking beautiful. She's getting very big. And a bad throw by the ball by me, but she is getting very big. She's almost about 1 year old. So we might be exactly a month. I think exactly a month, September 27th, exactly a month from her first birthday, where she turns a full 12 months. So let's see if I can. She has been very good during this podcast, though. Sometimes, I don't know if if the listeners or the viewers see all the jump cuts that I make, but sometimes she whines and she has to go to the bathroom and stuff. And so it makes it a little bit more difficult to record these, but she is, I mean, just beautiful. So I have to put up with it just because she's the best dog ever. Anywho, let's continue to look into these artificial wombs right here. Yeah. Right here. Your privacy. Give me all the cookies. Come on. So they're going to start these clinical trials. What the? All right. According to public data, preterm lambs have survived for up to 4 weeks in an artificial womb. Very, very cool. So they're already using this for non-human. I mean, they've done even cloning. I remember this was a story in, I believe, middle school for me, where they were cloning things like goats and sheep and pigs and that stuff. I mean, now they're creating entire parts and stuff for people that they're putting inside of people that they use from animals and stuff like that. Like the technology of the medical field is really starting to accelerate and exponentially get more and more closer to being able to create almost entire humans, which I think is going to be a good for society, because if you have somebody who is, let's take this example, a preterm babies, a baby who is not fully developed, if you were able to in a lab help create certain organs or certain things that they would need that are fully developed that you could create on your own, and then later on somehow get inside of the baby, could help to create a healthy and, need I say, normal baby without any real health risks or health concerns, even if it is born premature, which I think is like the 900,000 in 2019, according to the WHO. I mean, this is a problem that affects almost a million, that affected almost a million people in 2019. All right, now let's get into this article. A hairless, pale-skinned lamb lies on its side in what appears to be an oversized sandwich bag filled with hazy fluid. Its eyes are closed and its snout and limbs jerk as if the animal, which is only about 3/4 of the way through its gestation period, is dreaming. The lamb was one of 8 in a 2017 artificial womb experiment carried out by researchers at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. When the team published its research in April that year, it released a video of the experiments that spread widely and captured imaginations for some, evoking science fiction fantasies of humans being conceived and grown entirely in a laboratory, which I think is what many people will imagine, like I said earlier. Think that is what ultimately is going to happen. Not saying that it couldn't. It very well could. It depends on who's in charge of this stuff. This could really get out of hand if not taken carefully enough. So I definitely don't want to speak on as if that point is just not 100% going to happen. I mean, it very well could be used for nefarious reasons. Now, the researchers at CHOP are seeking approval for the first human clinical trials of the device that they've been testing, named the Extrauterine Environment for Newborn Development, or EXTEND. The team has emphasized that the technology is not intended or able to support development from conception to birth. Important note there. Instead, the scientists hope that simulating some elements of a natural womb will increase survival and improve outcomes for extremely premature babies. In humans, that's anything earlier than 28 weeks of gestation, less than 70% of the way to full term, which is typically between 37 and 40 weeks. So we're not starting from week 1 and immediately plopping a little tiny fetus into one of these things and then taking them for there, or even taking the sperm and the egg, putting it into here and taking that entire cycle completely detached from a human mother's womb and just completely creating a basic human from just sperm and egg all the way through term for 37 to 40 weeks. It's not what this is for. The CHOP group has made bold predictions about the technology's potential. In another 2017 video describing the project, Alan Flake, a fetal surgeon at CHOP who has been leading the effort, said, "If it's as successful as we think it can be, ultimately the majority of pregnancies that are predicted at risk for extreme prematurity would be delivered early onto our system rather than being delivered premature onto a ventilator." In 2019, several members of the CHOP team joined a startup company, Vitara Biomedical, in Philadelphia, which has since raised $100 million to develop Extend. All right. Let's continue on. Okay. In a natural womb, a fetus receives oxygen, nutrients, and antibodies and hormonal signals and gets rid of waste through the placenta, a transient organ which fetal blood interacts with maternal blood. Of these various roles, artificial womb technology is most focused on providing oxygen and removing carbon dioxide, replacing the mechanical ventilators that are often used for neonates. This can damage fragile developing lungs that would otherwise still be filled with amniotic fluid. The artificial womb would bridge a baby born extremely premature through those days and weeks when they're most at risk for lung and brain damage. The CHOP group has signaled that it would wean babies off its system after a few weeks when their organs are more fully developed and their likelihood of healthy survival is higher. The group system would work by placing extremely premature babies into what it calls a biobag filled with an electrolyte-laden fluid designed to mimic amniotic fluid. Surgeons would connect the blood vessels in the umbilical cord to a system that oxygenates blood outside the body. The fetal heart would still pump blood as it does in the natural womb. Yeah, this next one. I mean, this was my question after reading would connect the blood vessels in the umbilical cord to a system. Okay, making the connection with blood vessels in the umbilical cord is difficult because the arteries are tiny and begin to contract as a baby is delivered. So surgeons will need to hook up the vessels to the system within minutes. Easier said than done. The process has got to be really slick, requiring deft surgical skills and speedy transitions, says Anna David, a maternal fetal specialist at University College London. And now they're doing this for lambs currently. And then you can kind of see right here, this is kind of what it looks like. Several groups are developing artificial womb technology to improve outcomes for extremely premature babies, but they take different approaches. Using fetal lambs as a model, a group at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor fills the lungs with fluid to protect them as they develop. Another group at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia submerges the entire fetus in artificial amniotic fluid. Interesting. So this top one is the University of Michigan. Blood from the jugular vein is pumped through an oxygenator and returned through the umbilical vein. Very cool. And then the second one is the image that we saw earlier. So it's a bag with artificial amniotic fluid, and then the fetal heart pumps blood through the umbilical arteries to the oxygenator and back through the umbilical vein. So kind of similar, but some major differences as we can see here. Yeah, the Michigan device doesn't surround babies with fluid, but instead fills only their lungs through an endotracheal tube. And it uses a pump to draw blood from the jugular vein, oxygenate it outside the body, and send it back through the umbilical vein. The CHOP group hooks its device up to both the umbilical arteries and the vein. Each approach comes with pros and cons, obviously. Yeah, and then kind of let's go further on and talk about ethical concerns. I mean, the number one thing people are going to be like, they're creating babies in a lab. They're going to create a army of folks. Can't see. I don't know what she's doing over here. Carmela, come here. Come say hi. Might be able to see her in the back. There she is, popping up. Anyways, all right, ethics and more. Safety questions won't be the only ethical concerns. The development of artificial wombs represents a big transformational leap that solves lots of issues, says David, but she adds, it also opens up a whole new slew of issues. After the 27 study generated extensive media coverage, fears spread that artificial wombs could one day replace pregnancy. But researchers discount these concerns. This idea is so far in the distant future that it's not worth discussing its implications in relation to the current technology. I mean, so far in the future, but it's in the future. I mean, it still could happen. There still could be some issues with this. And I think that those issues are something that we should consider looking into. Those developing artificial wombs in the United States will also have to contend with a politically charged environment for reproductive rights. Flake and Michaeliska have been careful not to give any indication that an artificial womb would change the definition of fetal viability, which has enormous implications after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the 1973 landmark abortion decision, Roe v. Wade, in June last year. Previously, the 1937 ruling had protected abortion until the fetus is viable outside the womb. Interesting right there. Obviously, this is going to be a major political, and both sides kind of have their lines in the sand where they feel about abortion already. Maybe in the future, I'll kind of talk about where I fall on that side of the aisle with that particular position, because there are many positions that I would agree that some sides get right, other sides get wrong, and that is both Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Socialist, Communist, whatever. They're a capitalist, whatever. There are many different things that I think all sides of pretty much every political ideology does get right and does get wrong. And I don't think that's a crazy statement to make. But this one, particularly when it comes to these artificial wombs, it's almost as if you know kind of what side's going to be maybe for it. Now, I don't know exactly, but the way this paragraph is framing it is almost as if you're like, okay, those who are against abortion are going to be against this. Those who are for abortion are going to be for this. Now, I would say that this is probably a good thing to have, because if this technology can be used to help babies who are potentially going to be premature births, which will have massive health outcomes and health consequences for those children, if this can potentially provide a natural birth or a birth of where they're fully developed, where they won't have any issues like that, then I think 100% this should be something that we invest time and money into. But I do want to read this again, just so I'm not missing anything. Those developing artificial wombs in the United States will also have to contend with a politically charged environment for reproductive rights. These people have been careful not to give any indication that an artificial womb could change the definition of fetal viability. And now what I think that's saying right there is, if you could take a baby at 20 weeks or something and put him in this artificial womb, then that changes the definition of viability, as opposed to it staying within the mother until that predicted time. If you could take a fetus from 2 weeks and take them outside of the womb and they're still viable, being that they're outside of the womb and they're in this device, could that potentially change the kind of time in, or the spot in the sand where exactly it is that a fetus becomes viable outside of the mother's womb? Not to say whether when life begins or any of those other implications that are spoken about in the abortion argument. This is particularly saying that viability of when the fetus is able to live outside of the mother's womb. What is that point? Is that at 6 weeks? Is that at 10 weeks? Is that at 20 weeks, 30 weeks, whatever it is? A lot of people draw their arguments and their opinions on abortion because of that particular distinction. All right. All right. Some researchers also worry that artificial wombs would represent an expensive technological solution to a deeper problem. Michael Harrison, a fetal surgeon at the University of California, San Francisco, sometimes called the father of fetal surgery, says the data he has seen so far have been promising, but he questions whether it's worth throwing all that money and tech on babies that have a poor likelihood of survival, instead of finding ways to improve pregnancy support or standard techniques for preterm critical care, which would reduce the need for artificial womb technology in the long run. David agrees, adding that there is insufficient research and funding to understand why women go into labor early and how to prevent it. We need to get real with this, she says. Artificial wombs will impact only a tiny fraction of the problem. Bartlett says that systemic measures are important, but he argues that better treatment is urgently needed for extremely preterm babies. A silver bullet that prevents prematurity doesn't exist, and it is unlikely to exist in our lifetimes. These technologies are what we need when the systemic measures fail. Okay. Okay. Very, very interesting. So, things to know, artificial womb benefits. Yeah. So I guess the main point here is that these wombs are thought to be introduced for the sole reason of helping the preterm babies. Now there is some consequences. I mean that viability thing is obviously, if these are a thing that is created and successful in these human trials that the FDA is testing and then brought to the market, and then you have corporations having facilities where they do stuff like this. I think overall there are definitely some, I guess, political concerns of the viability of life and that argument and how that affects abortion debates and that kind of stuff. I'm a little bit more concerned with the actual act of saving the babies and the hopeful, I mean, overall good that this will do to our society, and hopefully we save a couple of babies. Although it will be expensive, there will probably have to be a lot more research done into this, and there will be mistakes along the way because us humans are flawed in many different ways. And I hope that this will not become a political issue, which it ultimately will be, because we are dealing with something where it could potentially, I mean, the big thing for me was the viability debate, which is a hot topic issue. And if this has some kind of impact on that, then maybe we won't see this technology because the members of our government are too busy arguing over the ethics of this and whether this is the right thing, and that usually doesn't end in good things. It's not always the side who has the right opinion always gets their way, and that can be for a multitude of issues that have gone back in not just America's history but society as a whole. Moving on, let's talk about the National Football League. A crazy week of major upsets and heartbreak for some team, and another week of career ending, or not career ending, but season ending injuries and things like that for certain teams. And I mean, just one of the NFL so far has been fascinating for many years, and especially this year included. First off, that Thursday night game, the 49ers versus the Giants. Going into this game, I think I thought that it would be closer. But I think at this point, it's safe to say that the 49ers are head and shoulders above probably the remainder of the teams. Offensively, they're one of the best teams in the league now. And defensively, I would probably argue that they are the best. Certainly one of the best in the league. I mean, all three levels of their defense, their secondary is amazing, great safeties, great cornerbacks, linebackers, fantastic, and their defensive line is probably the best in the entire NFL. So nothing new going on with the 49ers last week, a 30-12 win with 310 passing yards for Brock Purdy. I am hoping that for the remainder of the season, he does not become a weak point in that offense. I still think that you have good weapons around him. So if need be, you just get the ball in their hands and they're able to make something out of nothing. But I'm just waiting to see how Brock Purdy does for the remainder of the season. I don't need him to throw 310 yards like he does in this game. I need at least probably 250. But with that being said, I think that you could potentially see a fairly average performance by Brock Purdy for the remainder of the season. I sure hope. I sure hope. I don't need him to be fantastic. I just need him to not make any mistakes. Going on to the one of the weird games, this Cleveland Browns game. I mean, early on in this game, it was kind of a matchup between two fairly bad teams. I mean, this first quarter was a pretty tough watch. But then the Titans just collapsed. I mean, you see this here. 13-25 for 104 yards and 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and 5 sacks for Ryan Tannehill. A frankly embarrassing performance. But it was not completely the fault of Ryan Tannehill. I mean, he was under pressure all day. I mean, this defense of particularly the pass rush of the Browns has been fantastic for years in the past. But on the other side, you have Deshaun Watson, who I thought played pretty well. He had some late game scores. I mean, I think his last touchdown, the last touchdown to Amari Cooper was kind of just a wide open play. So, but the previous touchdowns and drives from him in the game, I thought he played very well. A big bounce back from him. But this Titans defense is just, I mean, it's not just on the offense anymore. I mean, this defense has to provide some ability when it comes to their pass defense. I mean, look at this. Their rush defense, not bad. I mean, not bad, but in terms of passing, you have to be able to stop Derek Carr. Have to be able to stop, although they did stop the Chargers in a overtime win last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago now in week 2. And then last week against Deshaun Watson. I mean, offensively, this was definitely a different game for them. Their worst offensive performance of the year. But you got to show some improvement. And I mean, their schedule doesn't really get that much easier. You got the Bengals coming up at home, on the road at the Colts, which doesn't look like as bad of a team as many have thought. The Ravens, then they come up on a bye, and then their schedule kind of eases up a little bit after that. But certainly offensively, not one of the best teams in the league. And now that DeAndre Hopkins move looks like it didn't make any difference whatsoever. I mean, let's see what Hopkins did in the game, because it certainly wasn't much. 3 catches, 48 yards. I mean, that's not getting it done. Not getting it done. Moving on to the next game, the Falcons and Lions. I'm very surprised at how well the Lions offense has looked this year. I thought that their defense would be their best aspect of their team, their best unit. And that is not the case. I mean, they're very well balanced, both offensively and defensively. But their offense has been fantastic this year, and their defense has been fantastic as well. This game, I thought Jared Goff played very well. They look like they have a backup tight end now, or they look like they have almost a tight end replacement after losing TJ Hawkinson via trade. Sam Laporta. 8 receptions, 84 yards, and a touchdown. Fantastic performance by him. I do think for the Falcons going forward, however, there are some bright spots. I do think, even though they didn't, in the long haul, they didn't get it done, I think Desmond Ridder is probably their quarterback. He is accurate enough when you need him to be. He's athletic enough. And And I think he really fits well into that offense. What that offense kind of aims to do is run the ball really well. And I mean, if they had a more athletic quarterback, sure they could do it well. But I mean, Desmond Ritter's not a small guy, and he's very athletic for his size. And I think that he has some weapons around him. I thought Drake London had some great catches early on in this game, and I think the Falcons will be fine. They kind of know what their identity is, and they kind of know what they do best, which is always a good sign for any NFL team. You kind of don't want a team who doesn't know kind of what their identity is, what they do well, and repeatedly does well over and over again. So it's not the end of the world for the Falcons. I just think the Lions are pretty much that good. Also, staying in the same division, a win for the Packers in a overall, I guess, a good performance for Jordan Love himself, but there are real concerns here. Real concerns for the Packers. The Saints did lose Derek Carr in this game. He was injured. An AC joint is what took him out of the game. And now they're probably going to be out a couple of weeks without their starting quarterback. So this is going to really hurt them. But the defensive performance by the Saints was phenomenal. Jordan Love was under pressure all day. And even when he was throwing the ball, it was into tight coverage. And it was not until the fourth quarter where the Saints defense just kind of played a little bit too loose, and Jordan Love was able to move down the field. So, I mean, props to Jordan Love. He played his ass off in this game, and I got to give him props for that. But still a tough loss for the Saints nonetheless. I mean, I would have expected them to pull out in this game. I mean, in those last couple of drives, you saw some potential of them getting away with a win, but I just think with the loss of Derek Carr, it was you kind of knew that the game was over, and it was kind of on the Packers to take the lead. But it was, as you can see right here, that fourth quarter by the Packers was where they did all of their damage. 18 points in the fourth quarter. Fantastic job by them. But if you watch the first three quarters, this looks like one of the worst offenses in the league. So definitely a lot of concern for Jordan Love. That was a poor performance by him, but comes out with a win, so you got to give him credit. Time now for our first major upset, a game I did not see coming. 37-17, Texans over Jags. This was a wild one. I mean, the Jaguars offensively could not move the ball down the field. It was very weird, very weird. And then defensively, they gave up pretty much everything. I mean, you just look at you just watch this game back, and you kind of see Trevor Lawrence later on in the game, he was kind of able to get his groove back, but just early on, he was not able to convert really any plays. And maybe that's a result of, could you even make an argument of not having a good team all around him? I don't think so, but just a poor performance overall by the Jaguars, obviously. But a fairly good performance by CJ Stroud. I thought he had a terrific game. You see that long 68-yard pass. I mean, he was dialed in, and the division, I don't know. I do wonder if the AFC South, if there is a potential that with a rookie quarterback, the Texans can really make some noise and potentially win some more games. I don't know. Their rushing attack looked very good in this game. Dameon Pierce is looking like a real bona fide running back for them. So I think that they will have some more success in the future. But this was a very surprising game to watch live. Each time that I saw a drive by the Texans, I was left with saying, wow, CJ Stroud looked good and they can really run the football. Moving on to our next game, the absolutely, I mean, one of the greatest performances I've ever seen in a football game. I mean, in the first half, if you're going to score 35 points, that's a good sign. And the Broncos defensively just got absolutely torched. And this is a game where I think it was a multitude of not being fast enough and also not being able to tackle as well that I thought were the real big defensive problems the for the Broncos. I almost said Bears. But the Broncos really bad in terms of their defense. Offensively, I didn't have any real issues with them. Yeah, they couldn't put together drives. As a rushing team, they're really below average. I mean, let's check their season stats now after 3 weeks. I mean, obviously we know offensively they're not great, but in terms of a rushing attack, I mean, 26 in the league. They're 10th in the league for yards per attempt rushing. So they're not a terrible team rushing, and then passing. Sixth in the league for touchdowns and 8th in the league for yards. I mean, they're not a terrible offensive team. It was just more so that one, they weren't able to produce offensively in this game, but I think it was just that their defense was letting points go, and that offense had little to no rest, and then they would get on the field, get a 3 and out, boom, other team comes down the field, and Dolphins score. But main takeaways here: will the Miami Dolphins continue to keep this going as long as they stay healthy? One, that's first off. And as long as they are able to keep this type of speed going up where their players don't get tired, don't get fatigued, and that defense is able to play as good as they have all year. Because this pass rush for the Dolphins, I talked before the season about how much I really do like this defensive line and linebackers unit for the Dolphins. I mean, we know cornerback wise that they're pretty stacked there. Jalen Ramsey has still yet to play a football game yet, so that is something to be happy about with this squad. But overall, a good win from the Broncos. All right, next up, Chargers Vikings. One of my favorite games to watch, and one of my best dueling quarterback experiences, or one of my favorite, I should say. Justin Herbert, he really is that guy, and it's another time of Kirk Cousins played good enough for them to win, but he was just not there. He was not able to go there. I kind of want to go to drives. Let's kind of go to. You're gonna let me. So you're gonna go down to it. All right, here we go. There we go. You kind of look at, I mean, the obvious thing here is the running game for the Vikings is their massive hole in offense, and their inability to run the football has just left them to get pretty much nothing going offensively. You kind of know exactly where they're going to go before the play, and that ultimately hurts there. I mean, they're touchdown. They get a touchdown here, make it 21-17 in the third quarter, 3 minutes left. And then they're able to force a pretty good drive by the Chargers into a ultimate 3 and out for them. I via a sack by Danielle Hunter. Like I said, one of the best defensive ends in the entire NFL, probably on the face of the earth. And now they're in a good spot. They get the ball in the fourth quarter, 15 minutes left. And you kind of see right here, Alexander Madison, no gain on a run. Offensive holding, 10 yards. Not looking good. Then it's 1st and 20. And it's basically up to Kirk Cousins to pass the ball and move it down the field because they want to score some points. And ultimately, they're able to score some of those points. And then that makes it a 21-24 game. And then with 11 minutes left, Chargers come down, score again to make it a 4-point game. And then it's kind of on the Vikings. They get, as you see, 2 drives to try and score again. And unfortunately, they're not able to, because I think part of the issue is once you get into these late game, close game situations with the Vikings, you know probably what exactly they're going to be running. You know that they're going to be throwing because it is a late game situation. You know who they're going to probably throw it to, who they're going to target. They do have a lot of weapons, but it feels kind of like a foregone conclusion of where they're going to go with the football. They're going to try and push it down the field, and they're going to try and be as aggressive as they can late in these games. And unfortunately, there is no threat of a run. So we'll have to see the remainder of the season. What they can kind of do early on in these games when it comes to running the football. You can't have 2 drives at the end of the game where you're expecting Kirk Cousins to all of a sudden become Superman. Next, Patriots, Jets. The Jets are looking really bad right now. Defensively, they're still amazing defensive performance by them. However, offensively, they're not doing themselves any favors. You got Joe Namath coming out, calling out Zach Wilson. I mean, overall, just not a good spot for this franchise. This franchise is in desperate need of... I didn't even see her back there. In desperate need of Aaron Rodgers back at the helm. But until that point, I'm going to say that they're probably not going to make the playoffs. So doubt that Aaron Rodgers is going to make it back to this team. But their defense is good. They can run the football. But outside of that, they can't do anything. On to my favorite game of the week. A game where I thought the Baltimore Ravens would win very comfortably. No Anthony Richardson. It's Gardner Minshew's turn. And Gardner Minshew even got a safety in the end zone with 2 minutes remaining. He gets a safety into the end zone. Crazy. And then, as you see right there, 2 straight field goals after their own safety. This was a good performance by Lamar Jackson up until late in the games. It was just their offense just couldn't get it together. And then let's go back into these drives. I'll scroll all the way down. Oh, perfect. This is probably easier to look at right here, but looking by the quarter, props to them for tying it up right here. But unfortunately, it was not an ideal play right here. I mean, you see they go on downs, and then Baltimore gets 4 plays right here, 7 net yards after a 43 6-yard play in overtime, 7 minutes remaining. They go down on downs. And then the Ravens get the ball. They had a real shot. They got the ball on the 46-yard line. And ultimately, they were not able to complete it. Now let's go kind of right here, see what Lamar Jackson passing complete. Pass complete for 7 yards. Now we have 4 minutes remaining. It's 3rd and 3. Incomplete pass. 4th and 3. Another incomplete pass. And then that allowed for them to start on their own 47. Then 13 yards, 2 yards, 3 yards, 0 yards of rushing for Colts, and that's ultimately what did it. A bad late game performance offensively by the Ravens, and a good performance by the Colts. A real giant upset. I didn't expect this game to go to OT, and once it got to OT, I was like, okay, give me 2 drives. Maybe that first drive Lamar has some issues, but by the second time, he's just going to take the game over, and he's going to rush for at least 50 yards on this last drive, right? But unfortunately, that's not what happened. Next game, Bills Commanders. I think the Bills are kind of getting back into their stride. This was a game in which Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs looking like probably the best pairing of quarterback and wide receiver. I would take them as a duo more so over than, say, a Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson, although I think Justin Jefferson is probably as a whole a better wide receiver than Stephon Diggs. I think that quarterback-wise, Josh Allen just has a little bit of an edge over Kirk Cousins, even though I don't trust either of them particularly that much in a playoff situation, primetime situation, or a late game situation. I do think that Josh Allen is a more reliable and a better quarterback. But I still have a lot of issues about him making these dangerous throws down the field. But not much else to see here. I mean, the Commanders are just got to figure out their quarterback situation. That's kind of it. They defensively have been a little bit more disappointing than I would have hoped, but there's been some bright spots defensively and some offensively. I mean, they haven't put up 3 points every game, but this is a concerning performance to say the least. Next, 37-27 Seahawks Panthers. This was an interesting game. The Panthers, as you can see, were up at one point going into halftime, and they were kind of in control for the first half, and then you see in this fourth quarter 14 points. Very good by them, but unfortunately, they were not good enough. You see Andy Dalton, 58 attempts passing, 361 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 sacks. Certainly not what you would expect out of him, but he was asked to do a lot. And then Miles Sanders, their rushing attack has just not panned out this season. Miles Sanders is not looking to be as great of a pickup as they probably would have hoped. Now, that doesn't mean that it's all on him, but I mean, this rushing attack, they're 26 in the NFL in terms of attempts, 18th in terms of yards. However, they are 7th in the NFL in yards per attempt. So maybe they just need to run the ball a little bit more. I mean, going back to this game, they didn't really pound the rock with their running back, but they were able to score early, and I think they probably thought that they would be in a shootout in this game, which they were, and ultimately they lost. But I am interested to see kind of where this injury Um, for Bryce Young will take the team. I do hope that he is healthy and he's able to play the remainder of the season, but not the worst case scenario for the Panthers. All things considered, a good performance against a good team. The Seahawks are a pretty good team. But I am interested to kind of see how well this team can do defensively and please run the ball a little bit more. I mean, you picked up Miles Sanders in the off season. I do understand in a close game like this, you got to throw the ball a lot, but try to establish the run early. All right, coming up next, we have probably I don't know if this might be this maybe this is in the conversation for the biggest upset. Certainly coming up next, the Cowboys and the Cardinals, 28-16. Just one of those games where offensively for the Cowboys, especially late in the game, they just couldn't put things together and they kind of stalled out. And I mean, you look, they got what? They had 8 drives. All right. First drive, 3 plays, -5 yards and a punt. Next drive, 10 play drive, 44 yards and a field goal. 13 play drive, 75 yards and a touchdown. That's good. Then 6 play drive, 15 yards, and it ends up in a punt. Then after that, 13 play drives for 67 yards and a field goal. Then in the third quarter with 7:19 remaining, 8 plays, 80 yards, and they go down on downs. Then in the fourth quarter, right at the beginning of the fourth quarter, 12 plays, 56 yards, and they end up with a field goal. And then get the ball back, 7:22 left in the game. They go on a 13 play drive, 69 yards, but unfortunately, it's intercepted. Now let's kind of go in right here. I mean, look at this drive. It started up good, but just poor interception. I mean, and they just defensively they kind of late in this game, especially you can see kind of right here a 69-yard pass completion. Never a good look for your defense, but they had an opportunity to come back and it's just they didn't convert. They didn't convert. And for the remainder of the season, the focus is going to be on their offense. The Arizona Cardinals should not have beaten this team. The Dallas Cowboys defensively through this part of the season had looked to be one of the best teams in recent Cowboys history. I mean, they were having phenomenal performances and then all of a sudden they're kind of having these issues. It's concerning. It's concerning to say the least. Coming up next, Chiefs, Bears. Chiefs, no concerns. Offensively, I was concerned about their couple weeks ago after that first week. Who are their receivers going to be? Is this finally the time where they're having these issues with receivers? But no. There should be no concern over the receivers. Travis Kelce is back in the lineup, 7 catches, 69 yards and a touchdown. I mean, you look at their other top leading wide receivers, Rashee Rice, 5 catches, 59 yards, 2 catches, 51 yards for Justin Watson. Sky Moore with 4 catches, 42 yards. I mean, but then Kadarius Toney, 1 catch, -1 yards. That is something that I'll be keeping an eye on. But the main story here is Justin Fields. I mean, as an offense, let's go down to the drives. Let's take a look. punt, 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 fumble, interception, punt, punt, turnover on downs. That's 8 straight drives. And then in the third quarter, they get a field goal on an 11-play, 25-yard drive. 11 plays for 25 total yards. 3 pass, 7 rush. And then their final one, a 9-play, 75-yard drive, which ended in a touchdown. What are we thinking for Justin Fields? How concerned are we? Because I'm extremely concerned. I'm extremely concerned. I mean, you look at this career. 5 of 23. Almost 60% completion percentage. 6.9 yards attempt, 27 touchdowns, 25 interceptions. Like right here. Received some MVP votes last year. Led the league in sacks last year. I mean, 17 touchdowns, 11 interceptions last year, with a probably worst receiving cast last year. They did get Chase Claypool throughout the season, but overall, it's certainly not a good performance by him. And in terms of rushing, 1,100 yards last season, averaging 7.1 yards a carry. I mean, he was phenomenal, but he also led the league in fumbles. 16 is not good to look at. And this season, he's just fallen off a cliff. He's almost at half in terms of yards attempt for his rushing. And he already has 3 fumbles through 3 games. So it's not looking good for him. And what is the cause? Is this really because the Bears are just such an awful organization that they don't know what they're doing? That any player, any quarterback who goes there just all of a sudden falls apart? That the organization is so bad that no quarterback can make this better? I don't know. I'm going to lean on the side of probably not, but I don't know. I do want to pull this up, though. I do want to pull this up because take a look. I should have cropped this. I don't know why I didn't. Oh, do this instead. Justin Fields has 5 wins as a starter since being drafted in 2021. 28 games, 5 wins. Here are some notable quarterbacks with as many or more wins in that span. So, 3 quarterbacks have 5 wins in that time span since 2021. Cooper Rush, 5 wins. David Mills, 5 wins. Marcus Mariota, 5 wins. Now we get to quarterbacks during the time frame from 2021 who have more wins. Jameis Winston, 6 wins. Almost 7, but the Packers pulled out last weekend. Jacoby Brissett, 6 wins. 7 wins now. Teddy Bridgewater. Then we have Zach Wilson with 8 wins. Then we have Sam Darnold with 8 wins since 2021. Then we have Andy Dalton with 9 wins since 2021. And the icing on the cake, since 2021, Ben Roethlisberger has 9 wins. Almost twice as much wins as Justin Fields, and he has retired. Now, let's be fair and say that the team surrounding the majority of these players is far better. I mean, the defensive unit of the Steelers for Ben Roethlisberger was much better than that of the current Bears team. I don't think that goes without saying. But Zach Wilson, I mean, somebody who many people are saying is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league history, which I would disagree with. I mean, I don't know how he's not terrible. He's got some real talent to him. It's just that he's not consistent and he makes too many mistakes. But you look at the other quarterbacks on this list. Is Justin Fields better than Cooper Rush? I would say yes. David Mills, yes. Marcus Mariota, yes. Jameis Winston, I don't know. Now I don't know. I don't know. Jacoby Brissett, I would say yes. Teddy Bridgewater, it's close. Zach Wilson, I would say yes. Sam Darnold, I would say yes. Andy Dalton, it's close. It's close. I would lean Justin Fields, but it's close. And then Ben Roethlisberger in his final years over Justin Fields right now. I would probably pick Ben Roethlisberger, but by a hair. But I say that to say that it is a red alert for not only the Bears, but for Justin Fields. The team around him is an absolute mess, utterly atrocious, disgusting, to say the least. It is foul. Defensively, not a great squad. Offensively, even worse. I mean, 87 pass yards against the Kansas City Chiefs. What are we doing? I just worry. I just worry about Justin Fields, and I mean, I was very high on Justin Fields too, right? I mean, I had a lot of good things to say about him. I thought that he could potentially be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Certainly one of the best. And I said this last week, I think, one of the best, probably 3 or 4 athletic quarterback guys like Anthony Richardson, Lamar Jackson. But at this point, I'm thinking maybe Desmond Ridder is better than Justin Fields, because there are these moments where Justin Fields puts together amazing highlight reel plays, but then he's fumbling the ball 2 drives later. He's getting sacked in the pocket by holding the ball way too long. It's like he's not consistent play to play. And he's gotten some guys in the past offseason which should have helped him out, but they just don't look good. Coming up next Sunday night, I thought the Raiders would win this one, and I thought that the Raiders played well. I worry about Jimmy G. Was he the right guy to bring in? I'm not too sure. For the remainder of the season, they should continue on what they did early in this game, which is throw the ball to Davante Adams. I mean, Davante Adams should be getting 15 targets a game. He should be getting at least half of the passes that Jimmy Garoppolo throws. Not to say that this team doesn't have other players who can catch the ball as well. It's just that Davante Adams is that good. And Hunter Renfrow is pretty good as well. But I mean, 2 targets, 2 catches, 17 yards is not ideal, but love to see this from Davante Adams. 172 yards, 2 touchdowns, 13 catches. I'll take that any day. Any day. And then Josh Jacobs, 17 carries for 62 yards. And then 3 catches for 18 yards as well. So not a terrible game from Josh Jacobs either. But Jimmy Garoppolo, 3 interceptions, 4 sacks. Just that was the game right there. Him throwing bad interceptions was what gave the game away, because their defense played well enough. But it was when you're given three drives from turnovers, you're going to convert one of those. You're going to be able to potentially convert one of those, and the Steelers were able to do so. And offensively for the Steelers, a much better game for them. I do have a lot of concerns about them being able to spread the ball down the field. They feel like a team where they want to throw the ball like 5 yards or or less each time that they pass. And I think that Kenny Pickett has the arm talent to throw the ball down the field. I mean, he doesn't have a cannon of an arm, but I mean, you have Pat Fryermuth, you have George Pickens, you have Deontay Johnson, who is obviously still injured, if I'm do say so myself. I mean, but they have some guys. They got Allen Robinson still. I mean, who can still play a little bit, but one of the worries about this offense is why is Pat Fryermuth not getting more involved in the game? I mean, 3 catches, 41 yards. He should be probably him and George Pickens right now should be the number 1 and number 2 options for them. And I do want to see a little bit more out of Darnell Washington. I mean, I know he's not probably the best tight end that you have on the roster. He is a massive human being. And I'd love to see him get involved in the passing game a little bit more. But this was a pretty bad game, but I thought that the Steelers have some real bright spots. I mean, offensively, they looked a lot better than they have in previous weeks. Going onwards, the Eagles versus Buccaneers game. This was a game in which I didn't really even watch this entire game. I saw only bits and pieces of it just because I kind of knew what the outcome was going to be. And I wanted to watch this Bengals Rams game more so, but I thought that the Eagles appear to be probably one of the best 3 or 4 offenses in the league. Jalen Hurts, I think he'll be fine as a passer the remainder of the season. And as a running team, this is by far the number 1 team in the NFL. I still think that they could potentially go to the Super Bowl again. Just because defensively they are a very good at stopping. I think they had a safety in this game too, if I'm not mistaken. Let's check. I think they got a safety. Yeah. They got a safety in the third quarter with 3:40 left. Rashad White tackled an end zone by Nicholas Morrow. So a overall good performance by them. The only real takeaway for the Bucks is I don't think their season's over. I mean, they're 2-1. They did look really bad in this game. In their last game too, they were, 17-19 against the Bears. Certainly, or 27-17. A somewhat good performance, and then that first win in week 1 was very promising as well against the Vikings team, who appears to not have too good of a season, but they still have talent. They just got to figure out that run game. They got to figure that out. But certainly not a bad team in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That this defense is legit. It still is a legit defense. But we'll see what the Eagles do coming up. Rams Bengals. The Rams, I thought, played a fantastic game here. I thought that they played good enough to win this game. Too many mistakes by the Bengals early on. You could really see that Joe Burrow is really dealing with a injury right now. He's in a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort. But just not a great performance by this team. And I thought that Matthew Stafford, if you take out these 6 sacks, I think this is a fantastic performance by him. The defense of the Bengals is phenomenal. Maybe a top 5 to 10 team in the NFL. They got really good guys on that defense, and they're really good at putting pressure on the opposing quarterback. Their pass rush is legit, and they got some really good cornerbacks there as well. But Joe Burrow, 26 of 49, 259 yards with 1 interception. And I think at one point during the game, he was just On throws down the field, he was not accurate at all. It might take me a second to find this, but I think I took a screenshot of this. I guess I didn't. But on down the field throws, he was pretty atrocious. Pretty atrocious. But Jamar Chase had a big game here. He did enough for them to win it. Tyler Boyd, I am a little concerned about, and T. Higgins as well. But their production is a reflection of Joe Burrow's poor performance. You got to hope that he's going to be able to continue to stay healthy for the remainder of the season, because if this is an injury that lingers or if it gets re-aggravated, their defense can only do so much. I mean, the Rams are I think they're the best passing team in the NFL in terms of yards. I mean, so the Rams are a fairly good offense. Yeah, third in terms of attempts and passing, and fourth in terms of passing yards. I mean, one of the best teams offensively when we're speaking about passing. Now, running is another thing, and in terms of scoring points, that's another thing as well. All right. I think that's it. That's it for the games of this week. So let's go. Let's pick week 4. Let's see what we got here. A little bit more divisional play. Let's start off with this Thursday night game, Packers-Lions. Well, actually, first, before we do this, yeah. All right, let's do a little housekeeping first. Before we get into our picks. All right, yeah. All right, let's look at the injury report for week 4. All right, we have for Thursday, September 29th. I guess this is week 4. Yeah. All right, Dolphins, Bengals. No, this is last year. I was like, hold up, the Bengals just played. Yeah. My bad. All right, we have Lions at Packers. You can kind of see here, full participation in practice for Rank Ragno. Good to see there. Nothing in terms of game status, a lot of limited and do not participate. No injuries, Falcons, Jags. No injuries, Bengals, Titans. No injuries, Broncos, Bears. Ravens, Browns. No injuries, Rams, Colts. Okay. All right. Nothing to report here. Good to know. All right, let's go over to winless teams, week 4 matchups. That's not what I was looking for. All right, here we go. All right, we have suspensions lifted in one player in particular that I really care about. All right, here are some other ones. Travis Johnson's suspension was lifted. Offensive tackle Will Richardson suspension lifted. Offensive tackle Isaiah Wilson suspension lifted. Defensive back Damon Arnett's suspension was lifted, and defensive back Mazzy Wilkins was lifted as well. Defensive lineman Roy Lopez was signed to the active roster from the practice squad for the Arizona Cardinals. Atlanta Falcons. Storm Norton is being signed off the Saints practice squad. NFL insider Mike Garafolo reported. Troy Anderson placed on the injured reserve for the Falcons. Ravens, Kyle Van Noy has agreed to terms with the Ravens to join their practice squad. Okay. Good for them. Browns, Deion Jackson signed to the practice squad. Devin Asai signed to the practice squad. Cut of Tristan Hill, defensive tackle, and Hassan Hall, running back. Some Lions injuries. David Montgomery thigh has a chance to play Thursday against the Packers. Head coach Dan Campbell told reporters he's starting to feel pretty good about Montgomery's availability. He was a limited participant in Tuesday practice estimation. Left tackle Taylor Decker, ankle limited, also has a chance to play Thursday. Center Frank Ragnow, toe rest, DNP. Emmanuel Mosley, limited because of a knee and a hamstring. And then safety, Kirby Joseph, hip, limited. So potential offensive line disappearances in this game. Now going for the Packers, Aaron Jones, he was limited because of that hamstring in Tuesday practice estimation. Really going to want to see him play because this could potentially be a pound the rock type of game. Wide receiver Christian Washington, hamstring limited, who has missed each of the Packers' first 3 games this season, says he plans to play on Thursday versus the Lions. However, head coach Matt LaFleur later said Watson has not been medically cleared and therefore would not confirm that the wide receiver would play. David Bakhtiari, he was a DNP. Offensive lineman Elton Jenkins, DNP as well. Linebacker Rashawn Gary was limited due to his knee, and Jair Alexander was limited due to his back. And then Chargers, devastating injury, Mike Williams, placed on injured reserve, torn ACL. He will miss the remainder of the 2023 season. Just an awful end of the season for him. He's struggled with injuries for years and years and years, and you just hate to see something like this happen. Minnesota Vikings, running back Myles Gaskin, released. Patriots, defensive lineman Daniel Equal, placed on injured reserve. Mac Jones isn't suspected to be suspended for allegedly hitting Jets cornerback Sauce Gardner in the groin during last Sunday's game. NFL insider Tom Pelissero reported per source. Jones said Monday that nothing was intentional. The NFL reviews all plays and it's possible that Jones could be fined. If you have a chance to watch, please watch that video. It's pretty interesting to see. All right, signings. Quarterback Jake Luton is being signed to the active roster off the Panthers practice squad. And Traquan Smith was released from injured reserve for the Saints. Giants. Saquon Barkley, ankle remains day-to-day as the Giants prepare to face the Seahawks at home on Monday night. Barkley missed last Thursday's game due to an ankle sprain. Left Thomas, Andrew Thomas, with his hamstring, is making progress after missing last week's game, per Ryan Dable. Left guard Ben Bredson is out of the concussion protocol as well. Now, Jets, Trevor Siemian signed to the practice squad pending a physical. All right, Seahawks, Rashawn Henry waived from the injured reserve. He is a wide receiver. Tennessee Titans, Justin Murray signed to the active roster from the practice squad, and some injuries include Julius Chestnut placed on injured reserve, and safety Mike Brown placed on injured reserve. Now, with that being said, got a little bit more info, a little bit more context to go into our first matchup, the Lions and Packers. I am hoping that this offensive line and running back core of the Lions plays in this game. So I'm hoping that on the road, the Lions are going to be able to win the game. And I think they have a real shot of doing so. I am expected to see a good offensive performance and defensive performance as well by the Lions, and I think that they will be able to come away with a win here. I just after that last performance, good late game heroics by Jordan Love, but that first half of play by the team was just not good, especially offensively by Jordan Love, and I think ultimately that will be the downfall. The Falcons and Jags. Now, after last week's performance, I am interested. However, they are in terms of the Jags, what they do well is they are good at stopping the run. 7th in the NFL in terms of defensive rush yards a game, allowing just 84. So, if they are able to control the clock, get some form of a running game going, currently they are about giving you 98 rushing yards a game. That includes Trevor Lawrence as well, running the football. But I will be interested to kind of see what their team is going to look like in this game. I will, however, in this game, I'm gonna take a little bit of an underdog. I'm gonna take the Falcons over the Jags. I think the Falcons are really going to start hitting their stride. I think offensively, what they do well is they run the football well, and I think this will be a week of maybe Trevor Lawrence can prove to me that he's one of the best quarterbacks, top 10 guy in the league, and he's going to have to put the team on his back because I think that unfortunately, with the way that Atlanta plays, they hold on to the time of possession and they get that ball a lot. So I'm going to take the Falcons for that very reason. Dolphins Bills, one of my favorite games of the week. I think I'm going to take the Bills here. And let me explain why. 70 points by the Dolphins last week. Phenomenal performance, right? Obviously. However, I feel as though in a quarterback matchup that I would rather have Josh Allen than Tua. And I think that going back to last year, this was a good game last year, and ultimately in the playoffs, the Bills won. But I think this will be a high scoring game. I think this might get up into the mid 30s. Like it could be like a 30-33 type game. Like it could be a shootout type game. Expect a lot of yards, expect a big fantasy performance by both teams. However, I like this defensive unit for the Bills. They've been playing good all year. 3rd in the NFL in terms of defensive pass yards a game, allowing 142 pass yards a game and 110 rush yards a game, which is 14th in the NFL, and running the football as well. Not bad. However, if you look at the stats on the other side, Miami's been phenomenal this entire season. Best offense in the NFL, and it's not particularly close. But we will see. I am going to take the Bills in this game. I think they have a good defensive performance and they kind of shut down the options a little bit. But I think they win in a close game nonetheless. Panthers Vikings. Going to be interesting to kind of see what the Panthers are going to kind of trot out there. You see Bryce Young, he's going to be out, obviously injured. And I think this is going to be a pretty easy win for the Vikings. I don't think they'll win by double digits or anything like that, but I think they could potentially throw for say 350 yards and rush maybe have they even had a game where they rush for 100 yards yet? Have they had a game of 100 total yards? Let's see, rush yards. Okay, last game they had 130. Okay. So let's have another week of 130 rush yards against the Panthers. Let me get the Vikings getting their first win in week 4 of the NFL, something that I certainly did not expect. Broncos Bears, just an absolute travesty that we have to watch this. It's going to be a very low scoring game. It's probably going to be like a 3-6 game. I mean, these are two pretty bad offenses, but I'm going to take the Broncos here. I think this might be explosion time over in Chicago. I do think that Justin Fields will make some plays in this game where people like, whoa, like some highlight plays that go out on social media. But I think he's going to make too many mistakes and ultimately cost his team the game. I mean, just so disappointing because you want Justin Fields to be a great, phenomenal player. You want him to be a Lamar Jackson type guy and have that kind of a season, but it just doesn't look like it's going to happen. All right, Ravens and Browns. Should be a good game coming off last week's game. Currently, right now, the Browns are favored. However, I am going to stick with Ravens flock and take them over the Browns here. I think the Browns do a lot of things well. Defensively, they're a strong unit. Probably their best unit is their defensive unit. Offensively, still some concerns about Deshaun Watson. However, with that being said, I do like the defensive unit, even though there are a lot of guys out for the Ravens, which definitely does concern me. Let's wait and see right here. I am going to take the Ravens. However, I think Lamar Jackson is going to win this quarterback battle in this particular game against Deshaun Watson. Going on to our next game, Rams Colts. Give me the Rams here. I like the Rams. They really impressed me last week. I think that they have a real shot at not being one of the worst teams in the league. Matthew Stafford just has to kind of not make as many mistakes as he has been. But with the emergence of Puka Nacua, they have a real shot at potentially making some noise. And I think that if they stay consistent and they're able to somewhat have a good defensive performance against a young quarterback in Gardner Minshew, that they can potentially win this game. And that's why I'm going to take them in this game. On to Steelers, Texans. On the road, probably going to have to take the Steelers here. I could really see the Texans winning this game. I could see them winning it close. However, after watching that last week's performance by the Steelers, I don't think that they will all of a sudden fall off a cliff. However, I do think this is going to be a good game. Dameon Pierce, I think, is a legit running back. I thought he played well in last week's performance. Obviously, the entirety of the season has been less than desired, but I think he is a serviceable running back right there. But yeah, I think the Steelers are gonna have to win this game by passing the football. I think George Pickens probably gets himself a touchdown in this game, and hopefully so does Pat Freiermuth. And I think the Steelers win probably like a 21-14 type of game. Buccaneers Saints. Now, if you had asked me this going into last, well, I don't know. This is a difficult one. Let's see what the line is. Saints -3. Now, I would take the Buccaneers in terms of +3. I think this will be a really close game. I think the quarterback matchup is probably going to be in favor of the Buccaneers for me, quite honestly. But with that being said, the defensive unit of the Saints is absolutely no joke. They are a phenomenal unit. I mean, points allowing less than 17 points a game, which is good enough to win. You give 17 points to this Saints team, they could win. However, offensively, I just don't see it. I just don't see it. I don't think that they will be able to come out and make up against the Buccaneers. Now, I don't think the Buccaneers are going to be able to throw over the heads of the Saints. I mean, the Saints have a great defense, but I think that offensively, the Saints are just going to kind of falter and fall over themselves. So, going to take the Bucks here. All right, Bengals Titans. Very tempted to take the Titans. But I mean, come on. Let's cut the crap. Bengals are only -3. Jeez. And people were expecting them to go to the Super Bowl again this year. I mean, I think it'll be a close game, unfortunately. But I mean, with the way that this Bengals defense has been playing, you have to take the Bengals. You have to. Yeah, I'm going to take the Bengals. Still think Joe Burrow struggles. I don't think that they do well in this game whatsoever. I just think it's going to be a low-scoring game, maybe like a 14-17 type of game. And it's going to be a battle of defenses. Maybe Derrick Henry gets a touchdown or two. But outside of that, I think that they'll struggle. All right, Commanders, Eagles, going to be an absolute bloodbath for the Eagles over the Commanders. I will be interested to kind of see. I am interested in Sam Howell. I mean, you look at his stats, about 65% completion percentage, 671 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He has not been awful. I thought he would be much worse. But you're going up against a really good Eagles team, and unfortunately, the Eagles are just playing at a different level right now. Different level. It's going to be hard to throw against them, and it's going to be hard to run against them. So, I'm going to take the Eagles over the Commanders there. Raiders versus Chargers. Chargers have been a little less than what many people would have expected for this season. However, with that being said, I think there are some bright spots for the Raiders. I mean, if they're able to have Davante Adams basically be their entire offense, they could really do some things and then sprinkle in a little bit of Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs has kind of fallen off a cliff from years past, and he has had some injuries. He's had some poor performances, but I don't think by any means is he a bad running back. I still think he's probably top 15 in the NFL. But it takes a team in order to move the ball down the field. So take the Chargers here. This is going to be a shootout type game because these are two really bad defenses. I mean, you look at the worst pass defense in the NFL, 337 yards given up a game by the Chargers. So Davante Adams might have 600 yards receiving today. All right. Patriots, Cowboys. Uh-oh. I mean, do I take the Patriots here? Do they win? I mean, the Cowboys -7 is a lot to give up. If I were going for the spread, I'd take the Patriots, but I think Cowboys are going to be able to win this game. Might come down to a late game score by Dak Prescott. But I think that this defense bounced back. Weird game last week. They kind of get their things together. They obviously had, I didn't even report on it, but the Trayvon Diggs injury is a massive loss to them. I think he's out for the rest of the season, so that's really going to hurt their defense. However, I still think that offensively, the Patriots are nothing special. So, going to take the Cowboys here. Cardinals, 49ers. Come on. Come on, son. What are we talking about? 49ers over Cardinals. Don't even have to look at that game. We know how it's going to end. Chiefs, Jets. Looking at this now, it looks like the worst primetime game imaginable. But if you were looking at this before the season, this looked like the game. But as it looks right now, I still think that the Jets will be able to maybe get an interception or a turnover in this game. I think their defense is that good, but I just don't think that Zach Wilson will be able to put together multiple. He'll have to put together multiple drives if they're going to want to win this game. All right. And then our final game of the weekend on Monday, I guess, is Giants Seahawks. Seahawks, I thought, have been playing pretty well up until this point. Looking to kind of see what is going to look like for DK Metcalf, Julian Love. Definitely want to see him there. Quandre Diggs. That's looking good. He still is questionable. I think offensively, this is going to be a big day for the Seahawks. I have not liked what I've seen defensively from the Giants. They have not been as well as I would have hoped. Now, part of that is that early's Cowboys game, which was just a really bad performance by them, and they have not seen to done any real thing past that in terms of a defensive performance, because obviously they didn't. I think they were shut out in that game against the Cowboys, but losing by double digits, giving up, what was it, 40 something points? Not an ideal performance for them, and they really have not done anything since, and just a lot of concern. A lot of concern for the Giants. Last year, they looked amazing. Their defense, I thought their defense would be one of the 5 to 10 best in the NFL. Currently, right now, it's not looking like that. So, I guess we will have to wait and see there. But if here's a question. If our civilization had the opportunity of sending a probe or sending some kind of care package to a different civilization, a la a asteroid or whatever, that had materials on it that could help start life on that particular planet, should we send it? That's the question I'm going to leave you with today. I hope me talking about that particular story with Bennu and the OSIRIS-REx mission helps bring hopes to people that our civilization can do amazing things. We're just getting started on kind of figuring out what our place is in this universe, what brought us here, and ultimately, in my mind, what implications are that we could help start life elsewhere in the universe. Hopefully, bring the best pieces of our civilization, the best aspects of humans, and expand that out throughout the universe, and hopefully start something that is beautiful, which is life. And hopefully we do our best to mitigate the negative things that our society has created and has been involved in. And hopefully one day we'll be able to say that we helped start a new Earth. But this time without the years of wars and the lying and the cheating and the stealing and the just pain that is caused by so many humans on this planet. Mostly because we're flawed creatures. And unfortunately, if we bring life to a different planet, there's going to be flawed creatures there. However, I hope that they're a little bit better than us. In artificial wombs, keep your eyes out for it. Hopefully we can develop technologies like that, which can help people live longer, help babies before they're born be given the, I guess, options and the help to be healthy in and outside of the womb. And hopefully that this research helps more mothers be able to get their kids, right? I mean, that's probably one of the most important things in my life is having children. Something that I think about very frequently, very often, and something that I really do hope that I am blessed enough to have with my beautiful wife. And finally, the NFL season. Justin Fields, what the fuck? I apologize for my swearing, but I was completely wrong on Justin Fields. I had so much faith in a market like Chicago. He's got DJ Moore, brought in some guys. But then you give me this. Just, I don't know. Zach Moore Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy the rest of your day. Go outside and make somebody else's day. Somebody cuts you off in traffic, let them go. Don't honk your horn at them. Somebody makes a mean comment to you at a restaurant. Maybe they're going through something. Maybe instead of responding with, shut up, how about you watch your mouth? How about you say, hey man, how's your day going? Catch them off guard. Somebody says, yo, I was here first. Be like, okay, yeah. What you gonna get? That's none of your business? Oh, okay. I don't know. I haven't been here. Start a conversation with people. Get to know these other humans that live on this planet at this specific time as you. Spread love, spread joy, spread life. You know what I mean? This is Zach Moore Podcast. We now have a sleeping Carmela. Gonna go over, hang out with her, have a conversation. Give her a little summary of this because she's been sleeping for most of this. You have seen a little bit of her on the screen time. But I'll do a debrief with her. Zach Moore Podcast. Thank you.